Let's talk about the 2023 draft class because right now it is all over the place. I think we are seeing players from this draft class break out right now, but we are definitely seeing players hit that sophomore slump. And I still think this draft class has the talent to be one of the best ones we have seen within the last 10 years. So you can't mention the 2023 draft class without talking about Victor Wembanyama, who took the league over by storm last year. He was the rookie of the year from this class, and he's been off to a weird start this year. Wemby has been taking more threes than anybody has expected. He is more games shooting under 45% from the field than over 45% from the field, and he's 7'4". Now I think people after that Portland game raised an alarm about Wemby because he was just taking way too many threes and he wasn't knocking these down at a good enough clip to be taking 6, 7, 8 threes a night. But he bounced back against Utah, he bounced back against San Antonio, and had the best game of his season where he had 34 points, 14 rebounds, and he took 12 threes, but this time he hit 6 of them. He's still been great on the defensive end of the floor. I think Wemby is always going to come with the highest expectations out of anybody in this league. People thought he was going to be a top 10 player this year or an MVP candidate. I still think that was a little too much for somebody going into year number 2, but Wemby is going to show some flashes that he can be a top 10 player in this league very soon. I think he just has to be a little bit more consistent, especially with his outside jumper. Brandon Miller got hurt in his first game this season, but we still have seen a decent sample size from him, and his three-point shot has looked good this year. He's shooting 37% from 3 on 8.5 attempts a night, but he has struggled at finishing at the rim. He's shooting just 20% from the field from 5 to 9 feet, so he's got to work on finishing the floaters, the mid-range game, because that's what made him a dynamic scorer last year. But he still has the size, the length, and the two-way ability to be a great complementary piece to LaMelo Ball. But I feel like he hasn't taken that next step so far, something we saw glimpses of last season, that he could be an elite player in this league. Oh man, this has been the most disappointing player from this draft class. So many people were high on him. It's Scoot Henderson, who went 3rd overall. And Scoot last year really struggled to start off his rookie campaign, but he was much better in the second half of the year. He looked better defensively, looked better at getting downhill. The three-point shot looks so much better also. But this has been a disastrous start for Scoot Henderson in his sophomore year. He is shooting 40% from the field. He's shooting under 30% from 3, and I really thought he was going to be a plus three-point shooter this year because he's a really good free throw shooter, and he finished last season on a high note, but he can't hit a 3 to save his life. He's averaging around 12 points and 5 assists, and he has yet to start a game for the Blazers, and people have been talking about it. Would Scoot Henderson go number 3 in a redraft right now? And I don't think he will, because there are a lot of talented players that went after him, and Scoot really hasn't had a super long period where he looks like he's in Brandon Miller or Victor Wembanyama's tier so far. And it's a shame too, because Scoot was in real discussions to go number 2 overall. He falls to 3 to Portland, who is going to be their new piece in the post Damian Lillard era, and it's been somewhat of a disaster so far. And I still think Scoot has all the potential in the world to be a really good point guard in this league. I just don't think it's going to come with this Blazers core around him, especially under head coach Chauncey Billups. But if he doesn't turn it around this season, 2 disappointing years to start off Scoot Henderson's career is not the place you want to be in today's NBA. But a player that has looked so good, especially on the defensive end of the floor this year, has been Amen Thompson. And Amen Thompson, I think, would look even better, especially statistically, if he wasn't behind Fred VanVleet, who's playing a decent amount of minutes over him as the starting point guard. And I think Amen is super versatile too, where he doesn't need to be the point guard. He can play alongside Fred VanVleet because he is such a good off-ball player in the half court. He knows when to cut, slash. He's very skilled and smart for someone with his experience coming from the overtime elite league to the NBA. And it's not crazy to say that he could be on an all defensive team this year if we see him play 65 plus games. So there's a chance we could see Wemby and Amen Thompson on an all defensive team in year number 2. This draft class could definitely be special defensively. We haven't seen Asor Thompson this year because of the blood clot scare he suffered last year, but he's been finally cleared to return, and he looks so good defensively, like his twin brother, and could be a great complementary piece to Ivy and Cade once again in year number 2. Just needs to work on that shot more consistently. But like I said, this draft class defensively off to a phenomenal start. The pick after Asor Thompson at number 6 was Anthony Black, who also, like Amen Thompson and Scoot Henderson, has struggled to start in this league because he's behind Jalen Suggs and now KCP and Franz Wagner in Orlando. But I like what I've seen from Black this year. I think the confidence is up, the playmaking is definitely there, and he's had a much more expanded role, especially with Paolo Banchero hurt. His minutes has gone up about 8 a night, but I'd like to see him still be a better three-point shooter in this league, because that's where I think he can have his most value as a good playmaking wing that's a 3-and-D player as well. But maybe the biggest breakout player from this draft class so far this season has to be Bilal Coulibaly, who played with Wemby over in France, and his numbers have been great this year. He's averaging 16 points, 5 assists, around 3 assists a night. He's shooting above 55% from the field, above 35% from 3, and above 80% from from the line at the moment. Add on 1 steal a night, and he's looked great defensively. He really does have two-way potential at the forward spot to be one of the better players on both ends of the floor, because we are seeing him be very impressive this season, and he's going to be 20 years old throughout this whole year. And I think the sky's the limit for Bilal in Washington. I think after this season, we're going to realize that he is the franchise building block of this team, and Washington is going to decide on who they draft and add to this team to build around Bilal Coulibaly going forward. I feel like Jarace Walker has been somewhat frustrating so far in his career. Every time I feel like he has a good game, he struggled to capitalize on it, and I feel like Rick Carlisle has been too inconsistent with his playing time so far. And he started off his NBA career behind Obi Toppin, and midway through his rookie season, they traded for Pascal Siakam. They extended him in the offseason, which never really gave him a clear lane to start. Now, there have been injuries to Aaron Nesmith this year and Andrew Nemhard, so we are seeing Jarace Walker play more minutes a night. He had a really good game against the Orlando Magic. He knocked down 3 threes. He played good defense, and I think he still has really good defensive potential in this league. I just feel like we haven't seen the consistent playing time to really make a good evaluation on him, and I feel like he's definitely a wild card in this top 10. Taylor Hendricks looked great to end his rookie campaign last year. He got off to a slow start, but 3 games in, he suffered a gruesome leg injury and is out for the year, which is a shame because I thought Hendricks was going to have a breakout campaign in year number 2. His shot hasn't been great this year offensively, but Cason Wallace is just going back to my point that this could be a generational defensive class. He's averaging just 7 points, 3 rebounds this year, shooting under 45% from the field and under 30% from 3. And they added Alex Caruso in the offseason, who's now their best perimeter defender, but Wallace is still great on that end of the floor. He's 6'4", got a long wingspan, he's super stocky, and just him out there with Lou Dort and Alex Caruso, and even J-Dub has been really fun to watch defensively. We just need to see that offense come around. Jed Howard is playing around 9 minutes a night. I didn't love this draft pick when it happens, but he has struggled to knock down his shots consistently. Derek Lively has been good for the Mavericks. I would say he's been better so far this season, but he's never going to play above 30 minutes a night, at least for the time being with Daniel Gafford there. But we're just going down this list, and we have named off so many good defenders so far, and Lively is no exception. I think joining Bilal and Amen Thompson as some of the bigger breakouts from this draft class so far this season has to be Grady Dick in Toronto. And there's been injuries to Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett at times, and Emmanuel Quickley, and that gave Grady Dick a bigger opportunity to get more shots up. He's a more focus point in this offense, and it's not somebody who's standing in the corner for most of the night like he did last year, especially when Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby were on this team. He's averaging 19 points so far to start off this season, shooting above 45% from the field, above 35% from 3, and almost 90% from the free throw line. I also think he's been a solid defender as well. But going back to offense, I know I talked a lot about this draft class defensively, but Grady Dick has been so much fun to watch offensively because his confidence looks so much higher than it was last year. His shot selection is so much better. He's able to create off the dribble, and we're seeing him be more of an initiator, something we didn't see as much last year. And Grady is still 20 years old, which is such an encouraging sign for this Raptors future, because the way you watch him right now, if he's going to keep developing as this type of player, he's going to be so valuable in the months of April, May, and June. And the last pick of the lottery, Jordan Hawkins, also got off to a great start this year. Like Grady Dick, he was becoming more of an initiator. The mid-range looked great, the shot off the dribble, the catch and shoot all look there, but he's caught that Pelicans curse and he's been hurt in year number 2. And the non-lottery picks this year have definitely struggled. Keontae George has so much responsibility in Utah right now. He's been a starter. I don't think he's looked great defensively. He's looked solid as a playmaker and getting his teammates involved, but he has too much responsibility right now in Utah. I think they definitely need a veteran alongside him to take some of the load off him as a primary creator, and I don't know if that's going to be Jordan Clarkson or Colin Sexton with this iteration of this Utah Jazz squad. And one of the big shockers from this draft class, the 17th overall pick, Jalen Hood-Schifino's third-year option didn't get picked up from the Lakers, so Jalen Hood-Schifino is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, which pretty much craters his trade value as well. Like, maybe you can get a second for him, but it's a shame too because we only got to see him play 20-ish games before the Lakers made this decision that it's better off that he's not on the team going forward. And there was this really good trio of wings that were taken outside the lottery that have also kind of hit that sophomore slump so far. Like, Jaime Jaquez has not looked as good as he has since the first half of last year's season. He did struggle to finish his rookie year, and this year he hasn't been as dynamic of a scorer that he was for the Heat, at least in the first half last season. The Warriors have been one of the more entertaining teams to watch in the league, and his defense has been great. His playmaking and connectedness has been great, but his shot is not falling, and that's Brandon Podziemski in Golden State, who's shooting sub 40% from the field. He's shooting sub 20% from 3 as well. I don't know what's going on with his shot. And one of the bigger disappointments this year has to be Cam Whitmore, who looked like a top 10 rookie from this class last year. He fell in the draft due to some medicals, but looked fine last year. He looked so calm as a scorer and could have really been a great bench piece for the Rockets this year, but now he's spending time in the G League, which is a big fall off for what Cam Whitmore was in his rookie season. But late first round picks and second round picks that have been great role players for their teams this year, you got to mention Julian Strawther in Denver. They're relying on him a ton this year because because of their thin roster, and he's playing a decent amount of minutes. Andre Jackson has been a starter for Milwaukee this year. They benched Gary Trent Jr., and he's looked good defensively this year. Same with Julian Phillips in Chicago, Tumani Kamara in Portland, Jalen Wilson in Brooklyn, and Trey Jackson-Davis in Golden State, who was the 57th overall pick. All three of those guys have been good role players for their team so far. I haven't even mentioned G.G. Jackson, who was one of the top 10 rookies last year. He was the 45th overall pick, but he's not going to play till January because of injury. So I think all in all, we're learning that this draft class could actually be one of the best defensive draft classes of the 21st century. But I think offensively, we're going to have a lot of wild cards. Obviously, Wemby's in a tier of its own, but who's going to step up out of Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson, Grady Dick, Scoot Henderson, Bilal Coulibaly, or some of these other guys to be in that tier offensively with Wemby? So that is going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know what you think about the 2023 draft class in the comments below. Do you think it's living up to the hype so far? Do you think it's been somewhat disappointing in year number 2? Let me know. Drop a thumbs up if you guys do enjoy the video. Subscribe if you are not already for NBA content and draft content all season long, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.